Okay, let's discuss what led to Nebraska having a tremendous win against Maryland this past weekend. I talked about some keys in the video I posted, I believe, last Saturday. We're going to address those keys and see how Nebraska either successfully handled them or didn't successfully handle them. So the first is we can look at the three-point shooters for Maryland. I talked about how three-point shooting is not their strength. They shot 31% on 7 for 22. Nebraska can live with that 100%. The second thing I talked about is their rotation on defense, how Nebraska was kind of out of sorts with the essentially having two new players on the court in their 7-man rotation. And Nebraska let Maryland shoot. I said 31% from three, which is good. And then from two, 33.3%. That is unbelievable. That is like way, way below Maryland's average on pace for the season. Tremendous defense by Nebraska, 100% tremendous defense. And the third thing I talked about was free throws and how last time Maryland outnumbered Nebraska free throws like 3-1. Like it was something like 26-10, something ridiculous like that. On Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was, Nebraska outnumbered free throws 25-19. So 3 of those 4 categories checked off. The last one we're going to talk about is Sam Hoiberg and or Vilcher Tominaga on defense and how they affect the game. All right, so one thing that was really interesting, you actually heard in the coaches' locker room, or coaches' timeout, I wish I had actual clip of this, but the Maryland coach was literally talking about how Sam Hoiberg is undersized and how he doesn't want Maryland to super focus on it. He wants them instead to be focused on what they're trying to do and let the size discrepancy come out naturally in the game. So here we can see Sam Hoiberg, because of the rotation defense in Nebraska, is currently stuck on, I believe, Maryland's post player. Reese maybe is his name, but he's a very good player. Maybe their leading scorer of the game. Solid player. So we can just watch as Hoiberg essentially has to try and box him out, and that's probably not going to happen the majority of times, and it leads to free throws and a layup right here. That being said, this was not the norm in the game, and it was the exception, which is a tremendous job by Nebraska. Okay, now looking at Nebraska's offense. 2 of the things we talked about were Denham Dawson and how essentially Maryland can help off in the first game. The second thing we talked about is the 2-3 zone. So the first thing of the only time that we saw Denham Dawson come in was when Lawrence got injured there on that last play. So Denham Dawson came in the first time at 12 minutes in the second half. And all respect to Denham Dawson. Like, he's a good player, very good athlete for sure. He just needs to work on the three-point shooting or essentially have more Nebraska shooters surrounding him. So because Nebraska played essentially a more shooter-heavy lineup and or big-heavy lineup with Blaze Keita, Denham Dawson did not see the court as much because of Maryland's aggressive help-off style. That being said, Dawson will play roles in future games for sure. The second 3, the 2-3 zone, I'd have to go back and rewatch the whole game to be sure, but I don't think Maryland played their 2-3 zone once in the entire game because of how well Nebraska handled it. It's possible they haven't gone to it the second half of the season, but I'd like to think Nebraska handling it the first game of the season so well also impacted that very well. Okay, then the big specific example that I talked about is how Maryland is going to double post-ups. Later, they actually double everyone in the post too, including Griesel when he gets down there. But this example, we're going to see Derek Walker double. So what I talked about last time is how essentially the non-shooter on the opposite side needs to cut to the rim, taking the defender with them, and that's going to free up somebody on the backside. So we can see Derek Walker's moving to the post, double. A double comes from the closest defender, so this is a good job screening right here. I really like that action. And then there we go. Number 10 is going to flash to the middle, and that's going to draw in number 24. The idea is either that's going to create Griesel open down here or Tominaga open on the other side. So Maryland is so athletic. They're able to scramble out of this and still play good defense behind it. But that's the concept I was talking about earlier. Here's another example of that. You're going to see the double is going to come from the nearest defender. Again, Nebraska, same concept. Griesel's down here. Shooter, screen right here. The one thing is that Nebraska doesn't flash to the middle. Derek Walker just moves the ball around and essentially negates any advantage that was had. So the double does an effective job when Nebraska's not able to counter outside of it. And Nebraska actually went away from it. They didn't go down to the post very much. So you could say that Maryland quasi won that battle. Didn't get any turnovers out of it, but stopped Nebraska from posting up that direction. Okay. Then the last thing that I addressed was how Derek Walker is going to see so much help in the paint because of the way Maryland plays defense. So on this clip we're watching right here, we see Maryland's got obviously the one defender on Derek Walker, and then Griso. I love this guard setting a screen for Derek Walker up top. Absolutely love that. When Derek Walker drives here, he's going to have two bodies right next to him, and then the third body of Maryland is going to be in the presence, taking away anything that preliminarily could pass. And 23 is even loosely in the presence of Derek Walker. Derek Walker finishes it because Derek Walker finishes at a remarkable rate. Here's another great example of this. Derek Walker gets the ball in the middle of the court. Love this action by Nebraska. It works really well on almost everyone, with Derek Walker being such a good finisher, such a good downhill finisher. Hey, he attacks. Maryland, defender right here, helps off, throwing bodies here. They're face guarding Vilcher and face guarding Tominaga over here because they're the most lethal threats as shooters. Derek Walker has two bodies, maybe travels, three bodies, ends up finishing regardless. Derek Walker he's an animal. So all of these areas, Nebraska playing wonderfully on defense, Derek Walker being efficient, and Nebraska on offense being very, very good, led to an absolutely tremendous game by Nebraska, with obviously the play of the game. Absolutely beautiful jump by Sam Hoiberg.